I'm going to take you through an advanced editing process as I might actually do myself for my own photos. I'll start by developing a basic look for an image, which I'll save to a preset, then apply to a batch of images. Then I'll go through those photos and make individual adjustments as needed, all while comparing them to the starting image so they have a consistent look and feel to them. So let's do it. I have these 4 photos from a recent trip to Croatia that I want to adjust, and I want each one of them to have a consistent look and feel to them. So I'll start with this one here to develop the look. There's a variety of ways to go about developing a look, and I like to start with presets. Why make your work any harder than it has to be if you can find a look that you like? I know under the atmospheres there's some cool ones, and I know there's one in here called Old Film that I kind of like. Now, this is a bit much. It's not exactly the look that I'm looking for, but it's a good start. When you load a preset in PhotoLab, you're not simply loading a final look. You're loading a preset of all the different adjustments that it took to make that look, which means that you can go in there and figure out exactly what it took to get there, so you can change it a little bit and make it your own. The easiest way to figure out how something was made is to look at all the different pieces that went into it, and the best way to do that is to filter by all the active adjustments. To reveal the adjustments that have been made, click on this icon here. That filters by all the active adjustments. From here I can see everything that went into making this look. I think the shadows are a little bit too pulled out on here, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust the smart lighting to see if that's turned up a bit too high. And sure enough, if I bring that down a little bit, it gets back to where I want it to be. Now I do like the colors in here, but they're a little bit too blue. And if I dig through here, I'll find that the tone curve has an adjustment made to the blue channel that's just a little bit too strong. It's added a little bit too much blue into the shadows, so I'm going to pull that down and make that more my style. Perfect. That's one way to come up with a custom look for your images. Another way is using something called LUTs. LUTs are generally used in the film industry, and you can go online and download LUTs for free or purchase LUT packs. Think of a LUT kind of like a preset. It's not one that you can adjust, but it has a particular look baked into it. You can install those LUTs into DxOPhotoLab and then apply those to your image. So I have a few LUTs installed. Let's see what those look like. I'll reset my image and search for the LUT tool by simply typing in LUT, and there it is. Now you'll see in here that I have a few different LUT files already installed. I can go through here, preview each one of them, and find a look that I like. I really like this one here called Roadrunner. If the overall LUT strength is too strong, I can take the intensity back on that. And of course I can combine this with all the other tools that I have in here. For example, this is a little bit dark, so let's go ahead and bring up the exposure tool and bring that up a little bit. LUTs can be awesome and can be an easy way to create a really cool look for your images. But the tool that I'm going to use here is actually something called filmpack. Now filmpack is another DxO app that you can purchase and install, and once you do, it actually installs all of its components inside of PhotoLab. filmpack is a standalone application, however, once installed, all of its tools show up in PhotoLab as well, so you never actually have to go to filmpack if you're using PhotoLab. Watch. I'll reset my image again, and I'm going to switch over to the DxO Advanced workspace. If I scroll to the bottom of this list, I'll see my DxO filmpack palette. And here I can see all the tools that are custom installed. But that's not the extent of everything that's installed. There's actually a whole bunch of film profiles and other things that are installed throughout the application that you'll only have once you install filmpack. One of those things that you have are new presets. If I go to my presets list, you'll see a whole collection of new DxO filmpack presets. I'm going to open this one called DxO Color Films and find a good film stock to start with. How about Fuji Provia 400F? That's added some nice contrast and toning to it, but I want to do a lot more. I'm going to play with the curves in here. Let's go ahead to the lighting adjustments. And for the curves, if I adjust the RGB curves, I'm going to change the saturation. So I'll go ahead and use the new Luma Curve tool to adjust the image without changing the saturation. I'll bring my black point up a bit because I want it to be a little bit flatter. And I'm going to make my highlights peak just a tiny bit. Next, let's play with the colors. I'll go to my red channel and pull some red out of the shadows. And then I'll go to the blue channel and take some blue out of the highlights. Now we're getting somewhere. How about we add a little grain to this image? I'll go to my grain tool, and it looks like the grain's already been applied. So let's have a close look at it using the loop. Ah yes, the grain is already in there, but it's actually perhaps a little bit too strong. So I'm going to go ahead and take the intensity on that and dial it down a little bit. And maybe take the size down a bit as well. Finally, I want to add a crop. I've been obsessed lately with the expand crop ratio, so I'm going to go ahead and type that into here. That's a 65 by 24 ratio. Perfect. There's my base preset. Now I want to save this as a preset to apply to the rest of the images. To do that, I'll go to my preset editor, click on the plus button, and let's call this Croatia. Now I'll select all the other images, and with that Croatia preset selected, click Apply. Now we can see that that look has been applied to all these images, but there's something a little bit different about them. They don't really match the original one. If I'm going to make changes to these images to try and make them match the first one, I should probably be looking at the first one while I do it. So the way that I can do that is by going to the Compare menu and choosing to use the current image as the reference. And now when I select another image, I'll see that one side by side. Since these are cropped wide, I'm going to go ahead and choose a top-bottom layout. And now I can go into each one of these new photos and adjust them so they match the top. In this case, I think a little bit of white balance adjustment will do the trick. Let's warm this up just a little bit. There we go. The next one, I'll warm that up. And on this one, I think I want to do something about the highlight in here, that blown out spot on the stairs. So I'll go to my local adjustments, grab a control point, drop that on that hot spot there, and take the exposure down. I'll do the same thing on the awning here. Now let's go to the next image, bring my compare view back up, and adjust the white balance on that one a bit as well. Perfect. Now I've got a consistent look across all four of those images. When developing your own look for your photos, this is a great technique. Start off with a basic look. Don't worry so much about exposure and specific spots of the image that might need to be fixed. Just get that basic look dialed in. Save that as a preset and apply it to all the other images. Then as you go through each one of those additional photos, make sure that you're referencing that first one each time so that you develop that consistent look, so when you upload them or share them or print them, they all have a consistent look and feel.